Hi YouTube, it's Carl here, and I wanted to talk about the Skulk sensors which were just released in the latest snapshot for 1.17. I think these are kind of interesting. I don't think they're going to change Redstone in a massive way, but they do have a very interesting way of working that will let us trigger contraptions. Basically, this is mostly going to be an invisible pressure plate unless something really groundbreaking gets discovered. But I'm sure there's some interesting things that could be done with this, especially for adventure maps and so forth. I do think it's a really cool block. It has two different features. We weren't quite sure how these were going to work. If you run a bit of redstone out of it, it will give you how far away uh, the sound being generated is, or the event being generated. So this line here is that, and then it has a bunch of different frequencies which depend on what's being done. So hitting the ground is frequency number 5, so it'll light up 5 lamps, and I was kind of far away. So if I do this over here, and I hit the ground really close to it, you'll see that I get a further distance on the redstone. So it all depends on whether you use a comparator or you just run a piece of redstone out of it. If I break a block, or I place a block, or whatever, that's going to be a different frequency here than, say, walking, which is just 1. But if I walk really close to this, you'll see that I get really, really high on this side, but I always have 1 on this, which leads to some really cool abilities for you to select which sound you want. There's 15 different categories of sounds, but what you can't do is then also check for the strength. So if you want to select, say, just hitting the ground, which is number 5, you would run this into a red coder, and you'd have a massive line going out here 15 blocks long, and then you'd have a bunch of torches, and then the red coder would spit out an answer when that's on. And then you could also run this line here around the front of the red coder, being careful to always use comparators to move the signal, and then you could move a piston in front of it. Like if you wanted to say get the distance, but you only wanted to get the distance for one of these frequencies, say hitting the ground, that's really hard. So this was an interesting challenge to me, so I've actually gone ahead and done this. This is my prototype here. I have a book in here with 15 different pages with all these different frequencies on them. So, this is walking, this is flapping, I don't know what that is, swimming, elytra freefall, hitting the ground, splashing, projectile shooting, projectile landing, hitting an entity, closing blocks. These are all of the different things that we can do. We got lots of different options. I'm just going to hit it back to hit the ground because it's really easy for me to demonstrate. And so I've created here just this little comparator system here, which there's 2 inputs. There's the lectern here, and there's the Skulk sensor. And what it does is basically it says if one is greater than the other, and then it does it the other way around. Basically, this light will turn. If you'll see here, if we hit the ground, okay, there we go. This will get pushed in front of a signal that is also being read. It's coming from under the Skulk sensor here. There's a piece of redstone. And so basically, if it's the signal we want, we push this piston forwards, and we need these wool blocks so that the piston does, when it retracts, it doesn't try and trigger the Skulk sensor again. And then it will send me out the strength of that signal based on how far away I am. So if I hit the ground really close, we're going to get if I hit the ground really close, we're going to get a signal there. You got to be really careful because if you walk near them, that it will always try and it'll read whatever it is, but it'll only give out a signal based on what it's done. But so now we have hit ground. But let's say we place a block here. We're going to trigger the Skulk sensor, but it's not going to. We're going to break a block, and it's not going to do this. The only thing that's going to trigger this is hitting the ground. Now to prove that this works, let's go to place a block. Place block there. And this book can just be a book that says like pages 1 through 15. It doesn't need to have the actual things written in them. I just thought that was a cool way of doing it. Now, if we place a block, we'll get that. And if we hit the ground, it won't trigger. So this is my prototype. But it occurred to me that this is pretty big. These things are mostly probably going to get put under the floor because you're looking for how far away something is. That's going to be the most useful place to put it. And the way I have this redstone here, the floor is at this level, which you're then further away, you're wasting some space. So I came and I designed a version of this that fits right underneath of a floor here. So it's the same idea, but we're taking this AND gate, moving it under here, under this piston here, and just these 2 wool blocks are necessary, and it's exactly the same thing. That got me curious about what the distances are. So these targets here, they overlap a little bit, are basically the targets for where this Skulk sensor can hear me, and also the different places. So this one is tuned to pressing a button. So it turns out the first 3 here give off exactly the same strength. They all give off a strength of 12. Here we can see that again. It's always going to that same light there by that red one there. Never further, which is very, very odd. I'm probably certain that if we do that, yeah, that'll go further. Yeah, so you don't quite get a perfect sphere, and then all these other ones will go down by 2. So this is 10, 8, 6, 4, I said 4, and 2. Yeah, it's picking up my walking, and then there's a cooldown. So you'll notice here that it's a circular pattern, it's not a square one. Okay, so this one here is configured to, it's basically 2 of the same thing stacked right next to each other. And what it will do is it'll only respond to a specific frequency at a specific signal strength. So the book back there is the same as the other one, and then this one here is just the redstone output of that signal. So we have it set to 8. And I believe this one is set up for falling. So this is 12, 10, 8. So if I land on this red circle here, there we go. I have it set up to ring a bell and also show me this, but basically this redstone here is the output. Any of this stuff back here is just for show. If I land in the center here, nothing. It registers and it knows that I've done the correct frequency, nothing. As soon as I land on this one, ooh, I was actually on that white block there. Hold on. There we go. We get the display and we ring the bell. We go any further, and it doesn't do anything. It is really, really cool in my opinion. I've quickly made a little floating island up here to show you sort of an adventure map style, secret door kind of thing, how this contraption could be used in sort of a real situation. Now, one thing that is really annoying about this is the walking. So right now, if we walk around, you can see that we're going to generate some Skulk, like that. And now, any interaction I do, I have to wait. It happens quite a bit. So I would really like it if you put on leather boots. And yeah, here we're wearing the boots. And then that would be the equivalent of sneaking around. I think that would be fantastic. Unfortunately, we do actually have to sneak if we don't want to set off Skulk. The leather boots is a thing right now for the snowier snow. You walk on the snowier snow and you don't fall through. And maybe it'd be like you're wearing slippers or something like that, so you can sneak around. But that's just an idea that I had. So here it says, recover the tulips and place under the tree. It helps if I'm in survival mode for this. I've replaced a tulip here. So we can go and we can collect the tulips, and it says place under the tree. So if we place it down here, nope, we can't just pick it up and put it down. We actually need to come and place it under the tree. Oh, that worked. And, oh, I found another tulip. Grab that, come back to the tree. Unfortunately, again, we're sneaking in. Then anywhere we place it under the tree will work. I'll place it here. Hey, there we go. Our secret door opened. We got our fireworks, whatever it is. We can come back, and now we could actually pick up the tulips again. Place them anywhere again, outside here. Doesn't work, but if we place 2 tulips, yeah, see, that's the problem with the Skulk, it's the cooldown. If we place 2 tulips, we can trigger it again. Now, one downside to this is this sort of thing you would need to do it in a controlled environment where players, couldn't just say trigger it by placing down a log and then breaking said log again. That would set it off. It's not specific to tulips. But, if you had a map and you just said, hey, like, no breaking blocks unless you're told to or something like that, then this would totally work for something like that. I think there's a lot of possibilities for this sort of thing. If you guys are interested, I will go through the redstone for this final one, just so that you guys are kind of aware what's going on with these neat sort of devices. Basically, let's start off with oh no, right, because the problem is I built a floor on top of it, so it's kind of hard to show. So let me just go into spectator mode here. What each one of these sides does is it has a comparator and subtract mode, and it's reading the 2 sources, which is the Skulk sensor and our lectern. And all it's doing is if the side with one comparator has a signal strength stronger than the other one, it turns off. And basically the idea is that we then take that signal here, which is whether or not this is on or off. We put that into a repeater so that even if it's a signal strength of 1, we're going to get a reading. And then we bring it over to this block here. Basically, this redstone gets powered by both sides. Basically, it's is the comparator, is the lectern stronger than the Skulk sensor? If so, turn this off. And then it asks if the Skulk sensor is stronger than the lectern, turn this off. And if both sides are true, that means that they're the exact same signal strength. Then what it does is it will turn off this redstone here, turn on this torch, and push a block in front of this comparator, which is reading from the Skulk sensor. That then does the exact, that's the first version of it. Then it does the exact same thing all over again, and it goes into an inverted system here where it's now reading the Skulk sensor at this piece of redstone. Because we've used a comparator here, it stays at that original signal strength that's telling us the distance, and then we read this lectern, and we do it the opposite way. So then it asks again, is this signal strength, which is distance, not it's not reading the frequency, it's reading the distance, because it's not coming from a comparator like the one up here is. It's coming from the piece of redstone underneath the Skulk sensor. It then checks with this book with our distance, and it does the exact same thing again. This time we're taking we can't put a piece of power under here, so we need 2 of these. If you want a full strength redstone output, you can change these 2 repeaters, because then it would no longer need to be a comparator. And it does exactly the same thing. This whole thing is reversed from the first one in terms of the layout of where everything is. And then it does the exact same thing. We don't need wool anymore because we're far enough away. This piston is far enough away from that Skulk sensor that it won't register it. And then it puts the output here. Alright folks, that's all for today's video. I had so much fun making these sort of inventions and messing around with this sort of proof of concept for the Skulk sensor. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more compact versions of this in the future, and ideas for how to do this better, and lots of things that we can do with the Skulk sensor. I'm just really excited to work with this block. Anytime we get new redstone is a lot of fun for me. So I'll see you in the next video. Let me know if you have any ideas for this or this sort of concept, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, folks.